No te olvides comprar los mejores juegos y soluciones tecnológicas solo en Hamming Games y Hamming Networks.
El siguiente contenido es solo con fines de entretenimiento y no debe ser tomado en serio. Al ver esto me liberas de cualquier responsabilidad. ¡Ah!
You'd never think they got an hour of sleep last night.
Or the next one was like a little side street up and that, and you're like,
Yeah.
what one is it? And the sat nav's going, turn right, and you're like, turn right.
Which right? And even though the sign still welcomes northbound traffic, the problem is no. It says thanks for your money, suckers. No, it says no, I'm just kidding around. It says drive carefully, come back soon. So by today's standard, the sign is not actually all that big, but in 1959 it was a huge deal. You know, none of these palm trees were here, none of these billboards were here, in fact none of these casinos were here. The closest casino to the sign was the Tropicana, all the way back by the MGM back there, and that was a two-story bungalow. So when you came to this sign, it was just this isolated thing in the middle of the desert that stood out with a shining bright light. And so today you look at it and go, oh wow, it's small, but 1959 it was a big deal. I also should mention that this is the original. There are replicas around the town, but this is the one built in 59. So there it is in the middle. Drive carefully, come back soon. And around the flip side, welcome to fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Guys,
casi me atrasa, que no se me
have to listen to the rattle all day. Get that out of the way because it drives me nuts, you know. Had this van yesterday, it did the same thing. So my apologies in advance. You ever come back and do another tour with? No. No. Along the banks of that creek, we used to get grassy meadows, cottonwood trees, desert willow trees. Got a little oasis in the middle of the Mojave Desert. And that's why Fremont Street is actually the where everything started. It was the first Western settlement. It was all built around the springs around Fremont Street. When the railway came through the desert in 1905, of course, they put the train depot right at the springs. Because when you're running a steam engine through the desert, you're gonna need water, you know. So the railway built their sort of economy around that. And we just kind of evolved around Fremont Street. Even in 1931, when gambling was made legal, the strip didn't get any casinos. It was all up in those little nightclub casinos, all up and down Fremont Street. You know, the strip didn't start happening until all the real estate on Fremont Street was taken, and that was in 1941 that the strip started developing. So anyway, it was all around Fremont Street, and it was all around the water and the meadows. The J is the desert, and the H is the people, the Mojave people. Fact. I've been facted. Actually built originally in 1931 to house the construction workers of the Hoover Dam, which, by the way, was the catalyst to Vegas becoming a gambling town. Before the Hoover Dam, we had a railroad industry, and our population in Las Vegas stood around 5,000 people. Would never have grown into more had not 21,000 jobs been announced during the Great Depression. Now, the construction company knew when they announced all the work that they were going to get a rush of people coming for those jobs. they also knew that they were not going to hire all those people right away. In fact, they announced 21,000 jobs. They hired 3,500. So they realized full well that they would create sort of a surplus of unemployed people, which is why they built their own private city. They wanted those unemployed people on standby for two reasons. One, they would hire waves of new people. Two, they wanted to threaten the existing employees. If you don't do what we tell you, they want your job, you know. But they also didn't want to have to deal with the unemployment problems in their community. So they built their own private city. Now, in any other city in the United States, you can't just pass policy at will. But in a private city built, owned, and run by a construction company, there's no democratic representation, and you can pass whatever policies you want. And so one of the things they did as soon as this city was built, they announced and passed legislation, or policy I should say, saying if you get caught in Boulder City without a contract to work for the construction company, you'll be arrested for trespassing. And they basically, during the middle of the Great Depression, created sort of a perfect little utopia. You know, 0% unemployment in a country where hundreds of thousands of people are starving to death in downtown streets and on the sides of roads. You know, very unusual kind of a community. Also, being built, owned, and run privately, the construction company, they ran things very conservatively. You know, here in the state of Nevada, we're known to be notoriously unstructured and unregulated, and we allow things in this state that most states do not allow. Like anybody can do an open application for a gaming license to open a casino. You don't need special Native American status. You don't need special government permission like any other state in the country. Here it's just open. We're the only state in the nation that allows prostitution. You know, we're the only state in the nation that doesn't have a last call for alcohol. Bars will close, clubs will close, but only because they want to. You know, and there are tons of places where you can get alcohol 24 hours a day. You know, we're now, granted, this is a growing number of states that are doing this, but we're in a growing number of states that allow the recreational use of marijuana. As long as you got ID saying you're 21, you can go and buy it, you know. Yeah, listen, I'm not saying any of this is good or bad. I'm just saying Nevada is notoriously unstructured and unregulated. You come here to Boulder City and it's a totally different story. You know, during the construction years, this city was owned and run by the construction company. And when the construction was finished, it was turned over to the federal government. The federal government, because the Hoover Dam was a taxpayer burden, federal government decided they were going to own and run it until it was no longer a taxpayer burden, which, you know, was 1936 until 1958. You know, between the construction company and the federal government running this community, it evolved totally different than the rest of the state of Nevada. I mean, as an example, 1931, the state of Nevada, because of all the unemployment problems created in Vegas, because of this, because of Boulder City and the Hoover Dam, they repeal a ban on gambling, try to create their own industry, because there's nothing for these people who keep on coming in to do. They're not going to leave. 17,500 more jobs are coming. Nobody knows when, but your chances of getting work here are better than most other places in the country, so they're staying. Problem is there are no resources in Las Vegas. I mean, it's the middle of the Mojave Desert. Yeah, we got water, and because trains, steam engines need water, we have a little rail industry, but that's it. There's nothing else for people to do. There's no other places to look for work. So the state of Nevada invents their own industry, makes gambling legal, the only place in the country at the time that did it. And here in Boulder City, while Nevada is making gambling a thing, Boulder City said, no way, won't add to productivity and efficiency. And to this very day, still no gambling in Boulder City. Now, in 1959, Panaca, a small Mormon community right up on the Utah border, they banned gambling. So now we have two cities in the state of Nevada that don't allow gambling. But anyway, it is the exception to the rule, not the rule. And the Mormon community is because of the sort of strict moral codes. Here, it's just, you got to look at sort of the very unusual history of this community. Another example of how it's different. 1933, the federal prohibition of alcohol comes to an end. 13 horrible years where alcohol was illegal in the United States. And, you know, here in the West Coast, Boulder City in 1933, from the Continental Divide in the Rocky Mountains all the way to the Pacific Ocean, Boulder City was the only city that did not allow alcohol. You know, didn't make it legal. And it wasn't made legal until the mid-60s. So, and even today, there isn't a single bar in Boulder City open 24 hours. Do they have some special law that says, you know, they have to close? No. I mean, we're under Nevada law with drinking laws. There's no law that says you have to do that. They just, because the culture here changed with the conservative occupation, they just don't. I mean, and even there, you know, no brothels in Boulder City. No marijuana dispensaries. You know, I mean, in the Las Vegas Valley, we probably have, I mean, 200 dispensaries at least, you know. I mean, I've never counted, but there are a lot. So anyway, Boulder City, extraordinarily different for the state of Nevada. It's a smaller community of 17,000 people. If you were to pick it up and move it to any other state in the nation, it'd be pretty normal. You know, no gambling, bars close, when it starts getting late, no legal prostitution, you know, not anybody can just go smoke a joint. I mean, that's pretty normal in the United States, but not for Nevada. So, anyway.
Do you smoke a joint, Eric?
No, I'm not into it so much. I mean, when I was younger, I used to. I find I just kind of become socially inept and hungry. You know. Yeah, well, my friends do. Most of my friends smoke. I'm not.